right, we're about to get started. Good morning, everyone. That's where that button is. Let's jump right in here. As a matter of fact, heck, let's just jump straight to the chat room because hello. Good morning, everybody. It's Wednesday, and the Major will be joining us in just a moment, and Philip Bittner will be joining us in the second hour. I'm waiting for them to link up with us. There's all kinds of stuff that goes on, but I thought I'd jump straight in and start the show a little bit. In that Twitch, is everything good? Okay, and Instagram's running. Nope, we got to go live. Now we're live on Instagram. Hi, everybody on Instagram. Welcome to the show. Good for you to join us in the middle of this craziness. So yesterday and the day before, sort of late in the day, people started asking me a bit about the Jack Smith report. And having read it now, can I just say that this is kind of like, in terms of my show and the stuff I talk about on here, it's kind of like when the Mueller report finally came out. By the time the report was released, and even the entirety of it, not just the little like addendum cliff notes that was put out by Bill Barr, we know all this shit. Frankly, like reading through the whole thing, there are very few things in there that have not come out in, one of the myriad of things I've covered over the last, year and a half, I would say, or 2 years. There are some maybe internal communications or emails referenced in there between co-conspirators, but all of it's in line with a lot of the stuff that we already know. All of it, I think, absolutely would prove a case in a court of law. All of it has enough evidentiary backing for Trump, the candidate, to have gone to jail had it been brought sooner. I think most of it probably was known in large part, with maybe a rare exception, within 3 months of January 6th. And the real report I would love to see, and the one we're not going to see, is the classified documents case, which is the stronger of the two and the more important of the two as far as, litigation, relitigation of, actual damage to the country, because the chances of a Jan 6 happening again are very, very small. For a lot of reasons. So, a lot of times when you're trying these kind of things, the people involved sending the fake electors and all that crowd to jail, that's very helpful. And that's happening on a state level and a federal level. It's amazing that, Trump won't go to jail for this, but a bunch of the people he worked with will. And they're like, but even as much as he seems to have, there's this perception that he can just do whatever the fuck he wants. There is a real concern around him that he can't pardon certain people, and that J.D. Vance has started walking back which of the Jan 6ers he can pardon and that kind of thing. Yes, Lord. It's so funny. There's a person at my front door. It's the Major. No, I'm kidding. So the focus. I'm working. Okay. So I have to say, like, the report itself, useful, important to know, yada, yada, yada. But we already know this, right? We already, like, anybody who watches my show on the regular, every detail that's in there, like, we have covered at some point or another. And so I don't feel like I think that's why it probably, in the midst of the fires and other stuff like that, it's not punching its way to the top. All right. The classified documents part, the issue with it and why it won't get released and why we won't see a lot of it is because it involves classified information. And so you can't make the case without making some of that stuff public, which is why you're bringing the case in the first place. And so it always had a slow walk to it that was going to benefit what Trump was engaged in. The irony that if you were engaged in, I don't know, theft of money or whatever, just straight up cash, the fact that the cash exists, the numbers on the bills themselves, none of that shit is going to be it needs to be hidden for the safety of the public. Maybe there's a parallel with like sexual assault cases where you have a Jane Doe or a John Doe in these cases, and so it slows down the process a little bit because you have to hide the names and information. You have to redact things so that the public doesn't find out who the victim is, so they can be tormented or whatever. Maybe some parallel also in the world of mob informants, something like that, right? But when it comes to classified documents and all this kind of stuff, it's why, like there's a mythology in some ways around Snowden and around his ilk, is that the bigger programs or the names of the programs or those kind of things can be released, but the intricacies of them cannot. And so any mitigating element of it where you'll go, oh, that sounds bad at first, but now that I'm listening to it, it's not that different from like what Snowden was showing was largely no different than when Google sells your information to a private company. It's just that the federal government can't buy that same stuff. Seems weird. So they set up their own thing, but only for emergencies and only around certain sites, you know, like the Capitol during a raid and that kind of stuff, where you can do like cell sweeps in and around an act of violence that's ongoing, right? Like the Boston bombing or the 9/11 or those kind of things, right? Which would seem like in a modern electronic world something you could do as an act of normalcy, right? You're not just doing a sweep so you can get everybody's private, you know, Pornhub search results. You're doing this because there's an ongoing danger that's happening in that moment, right? And that not that weird at all. Meanwhile, by the way, local police can do similar things, but the federal government couldn't on these giant acts of terror, blah, blah, blah. So, but the name of it sounds scary, and the details have to be hidden because how they do it and the material element of when it's done and all that kind of stuff. Yes, Snowden leaked shit we already knew, and a lot of it was just anti-government, you know, Rebel Incorporated bullshit. But it's similar to that in that because you can't release the details around it that show how it's done and the levels which it's done, and other than say within closed door committees and the like. Then you have the Rand Pauls of the world, or like these kind of, you know, anti-government, borderline sovereign citizen maggot assholes in the House who get these briefings and come out and, like Marjorie Taylor Greene did in a couple of these things, give these kind of like half-ass explanations that are all paranoia, all spooky shit, none of the mitigating details, so you don't get a balanced look at it at all, right? Because they're selling a point of view. And so that's why we don't have the Smith report on the classified stuff. What we have is the stuff on Jan 6. And the stuff on Jan 6, a lot of it we fucking know. A lot of it we already know, right? So that's just one of the things. And by the way, Andre, I'm not seeing the major in here yet. Waiting on him. I'll reload the page. I don't think it will change a thing, but don't see him. Just making sure he's got the right link again. I'll just sending it again just to make sure. Oh, wait, there he is. Never mind. I take it back. There he is. I see him.
I'm so sorry.
Excellent. Joining us now, the major. I'll be in here. Give me 1 second. Can you check for me so I can hear you? See if I can.
Ojeda, 1, 2,
Major,
3.
I'm not. Let's see. Do you hear me?
I can hear you. I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Okay, there's. Is there audio coming out of there? Give me 1 sec. Oh, hold on. It's a headphones issue on my end to wake these guys back up. Something's wonky. What are the other options that I have for the thing to do? Give me 1 second. I have to like reset these. My headphones have been weird this morning. They've been yelling at me. And check 1, check 2. Oh, nope.
I hear you now.
Still not paired. Okay, that's fun. Okay, holding on. We go with the other backups, we think. With maybe. Let's see if these work. Haha. Beg your pardon, folks. This is on me. We'll try this.
I can hear you now.
Might have to do a...
I hear
Sorry
you.
about this, folks. It's my fault. Let's see. I've got... When in doubt, I whip it out. I'm not afraid. Plug these in and go hardwired, because that's the way life is. Yeah, something was wonky this morning with these guys, and that's on me. Check one, and I think I should be able to hear you now.
Can you hear me?
I can indeed. Thank you, sir.
Sorry about being late.
That's okay. The world is full of reasons to be late these days. We'll never be short on that. There he is, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome. And I gave you a new link, and it's partly my fault. I blame me personally. So I was just talking about Majors while I was waiting for you patiently. Was the idea that the Jack Smith report that just came out about January 6th, a lot of it we already know. There's very little in it that I could find. And I did a full scan of like all the little reference points he makes, that there's so much that references news articles. There's so much that references shit we've already seen that none of it, I think, achieves a level of shock and excitement amongst the news media, because a lot of them have already reported this shit, but the problem we have with I think the classified documents thing is that there's just a lot they can't report on, or if it's reported on, that's the very violation that we have a problem with. If you can't release the information about the information. And I was making a parallel between this, like redacting a John or a Jane Doe, or trying to keep somebody's information out of the press will slow walk the investigation and into it, because the entire process, you're trying to not draw media attention to who somebody is, to protect them, right, from this, from the public finding out that they're a victim of Matt Gaetz or something like that, right? So that slows these things down, and it will always be the difficulty in these kind of cases. And I think there needs to be something where we get out ahead of this. Like there's, I don't know if it's a code word for it, like we have Jane and John Doe's. But there's like, document 1, document through, document X, or whatever we want to call it, where you go, we have a document X situation where it's about the leak of this document, which categorically, a document X has to be human intel or higher, but it is a national crime to release it. And we can just talk about a document X break, a document X release, a document X theft, or whatever, in a way that we don't have to relitigate every time whether it qualifies or what it actually means, or whether it's nuclear secrets or the home location of one of our spies in Moscow, right? We got to have some way to talk about this shit that speeds up this process in terms of news coverage, so that they can talk about it in a way that gives us all the news like we had about Jan 6. Like there's so much coverage, so much news, so much evidence that's already in the public record.
Yeah,
is there an echo?
Double.
Okay, hold on. Let's see if try that again.
Can you hear
me?
Me?
Yeah. Is that better?
Okay. But it's great. Little bit of a delay, but for me, but it's okay.
Okay.
I read through the report yesterday, and it did not tell me anything that I wasn't already aware of. But what it does do is it does highlight that Donald Trump was told countless times that you did not win, that it wasn't stolen.
Right.
And Donald Trump continued to say he didn't care. He didn't care. We're going to still try to do what he did. And it bothers me, because the way I think right now is the past 4 years, Merrick Garland basically drug his feet. If the classified document stuff actually gets to come out, and I think it must come out. And I think that they could do it in a way that just speaks about the regulations about, how you can transport classified documents,
Yes.
where you can, store classified documents. And then basically just talking about how Donald Trump obstructed, where they tried to hide documents, where they found that he had a secret room that was that they never let him know about. I think that's important for us to see. And then if any time he spoke with other people and basically gave away our secrets, because he did.
Yeah.
I mean, he gave away information concerning our nuclear submarines to an Australian billionaire who then went and spread it to multiple people about that. And that's the kind of stuff that Donald Trump is. Donald Trump looked at classified documents as like, hey, look what I got. Yes. I'm important. This is me. I have this.
Yep.
And once again, it shows you how he shouldn't be allowed to get a security clearance, especially in this next time, but he will. But I just, it just bothers me that for 4 years we had all this stuff that happened, and Donald Trump should have been taken out of the Oval Office in the handcuffs on January the 6th, and they did nothing but drag their feet.
Right.
And now this is important for this stuff to come out, because people can look at that and go, wow, he really was guilty.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter. He's going to be the president of the United States. Congratulations. Thank you, Merrick Garland. Maybe Donald Trump will give you a job because you've worked for him the last 4 years.
Yeah, it's so weird. Hold on, I'm going to switch this out, and hopefully this will... can you check for me again? Let me make sure that I get a check.
Check one.
Okay, yeah, so that was good. That should get rid of the...
I think that was... Yeah. That was better.
Okay, great. So that you won't get the slap back. So you're absolutely right in that regard. Merrick Garland, I understand the impetus, and this is Trump benefiting from the civilization. Well, I would argue that much has been made since Silence of the Lambs and shit like that about how smart serial killers are. Just how brilliant they are, and how they outsmart everybody, and then most of the time they just jump women who are looking the other way. They or children, or people who are just or people where they hold their children hostage while they take advantage of this person. They're not that smart. They just play on the civility of other human beings in the way that like online trolls do. Part of online trolling is really just an attack on civility. That's really what it is. It's like you try to gin up emotion and stuff so you get a snapback response. And it's a win, because all you got to do is roll in. That's why we call it trolling, because it's like dragging bait behind a slow moving boat. You don't really care. And so what you're doing is you're snagging people who care, right? And so there's a lot of this. Trump is basically like a troll president in this regard. And half the time, I think you're absolutely right that he is a braggadocious moron when it comes to submarines and shit like that. And my message to the intelligence community would be to always preface, if you mention this to anyone, our soldiers will die. Just flat out fucking say it. If this gets out, our spies and our human intelligence leaks will die. They will be tortured to death and murdered. And like, it should just be stated, like, almost to the point where he gets tired of fucking hearing it. Because part of his braggadociousness is his disassociation with this, with the consequences of what it actually means. Like, dude, if they know how our technology works, they can compensate what they're using to find it in the ocean, for example. They can mitigate whatever technology they are using to seek out our soldiers, our ships, our airmen, or whatever, while they're patrolling in an area, if they know about this. And they don't need to know much. Like, there is so much. Hold on, I need to show you guys something, because this is so fucked up.
Let me also state, while you're getting that stuff ready, they now are saying that, like, NARA, the National Archives, like, they're already saying, hey, we didn't get back all the records.
Yes,
we're still missing quite a few files that are very, very important. And that's one of the things, that Donald Trump stole these.
Yeah.
The way that they even transported them down to Florida was actually illegal. They just shoved them in the daggone U-Haul and drove them down. Illegal. I mean, everything that they did was wrong. And when you're talking about classified documents, you're spot on. When you sit and go, well, we got this many, blah, 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 and they're in this location, you are putting our sailors in jeopardy that are on those ships. Sailors and Marines that are on those ships, you are placing their lives in jeopardy by telling people these secrets. But once again, Donald Trump, being a braggadocious guy that he is, he wants people to think, look at me, I'm a big guy, I know secrets. Right. And then he'll tell them the secrets that he knows. And once again, I'm just hoping, it still bothers me that when Donald Trump became the president of the United States, one of the first things he did was said, give me a list of all those who are working for us, technically are spies. And literally after that list was given to him, there was a huge uptick in our people that were working for us that were captured, killed. I mean, I'm telling you, this is the kind of stuff, it breaks my heart, man. It breaks my heart that we have another 4 years of this, and we shouldn't. We shouldn't even be talking about this. We should be in a complete different world right now. The reason why, and Donald Trump has done so much damage to our world. Donald Trump has done this. I mean, right now, we've got bills being pushed that are basically taking women's rights away. We've got people that they don't give a shit. I mean, they can sit and spew hatred. I'm going to let y'all know, I'm going to be doing something in 2026. Yeah. And I'm going to tell you, I don't see why. Why have we never, ever brought back the fairness doctrine? How hard is that to do? What we're saying is let's bring this back and say that if you are a news agency, you must be honest. Yeah. If you spew hatred, if you spew lies, you're going to be first fined. Then we're going to give you a time off of where you're going to get a 1 month off of the air, and then we're going to close you down completely. I mean, we are sitting here still watching Fox News poison people after they had to pay $787 million for lying, and Smartmatic's about ready to bust them for another probably $787 million. Yep. And they're still on the air, and they still are spewing nothing but pure lies. Mm-hmm. And this is ruining our country. Yeah. Make no mistake about it. If you're that guy going, heck yeah, Donald Trump sticking it to him, you're the reason why we're going to lose our friggin' democracy, you fucking moron. Well,
here's a good example. This is Marjorie Taylor Greene responding to people, the criticism that I've said we need to throw everybody's way about Trump on, his day one, after winning the election, 24 hours, he would fix the Ukraine war, right? He was going to solve it in 24 hours. Now it's going to be 24 hours after he takes office. Well, it hasn't been the day after or any day since, and it's not going to be 24 hours after. And here's this is in direct response to somebody like President-elect made an attention-grabbing promise in 2023 to settle the Russia-Ukraine war within 24 hours of taking office, which is actually his campaign's most consistent promise. But she said, I think you need to understand language, and everyone else in America understands that language. I don't think the media pressing day one is specifically day one. But he's talking about that as one of his first roles as president, and there are many. He's going to be writing hundreds of executive orders, but yes, ending that war is important. Greene then said it would be useless for reporters to try, and this is one of my favorite phrases, hold President Trump's feet to the fire. Like, there's not going to be any fucking standard for this asshole, even amongst his own people, and they're going to be chewing each other's fucking spines over this shit because
it's going to get ugly. It's going to get ugly
amongst them.
Here's another thing too. Look at what's going on in California. Mm-hmm. I mean, we're talking about thousands of homes have been destroyed. People's entire lives have been lost. Understand that a lot of these people also that you're throwing hatred for are people that's the baristas. That's the people that work in the bartenders. That's the people that they act, but on the side, they got to work these little jobs. Yep. They live in small, cramped apartments with each other, chipping up, dividing up the rent and stuff because they're not making that much. They've lost everything. They've lost it all. And Fox News, Elon Musk, and things like that have literally vilified those people.
Right.
I mean, we've got people that are saying we don't need to give them nothing. Really? If it wasn't for, what if California said, you know what, I'll tell you what, we're no longer going to send any fucking money to Washington, D.C. in terms of taxes. We're just going to keep it all in-house, and we're going to use that to prepare ourselves for these fires. If California did that, let me tell you something. States like Kentucky, West Virginia, Louisiana, Alabama, Arkansas, Mississippi, Tennessee would literally go under.
Yep.
Absolutely. And these people are saying, well, we think that if we're going to continue giving help to California, there needs to be, strings attached. Look, what happens when you get hit with the natural disaster?
Right.
You're the first one screaming, gimme, 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 gimme. It just amazes me how these people are allowed to vilify people and have so many people in this country hating on them. For what? For living in California?
Right.
I mean, for working hard and trying to maybe become an actor, and that's their dream in life, and you want to hate on them, and you don't think that they deserve to get protection? It's just embarrassing.
Caleb, our guitar player in Nerd Halen, started this project because he's wanted to do this his whole life. It's like his dream thing. And he dreamt it up while he was driving Ubers and working at this restaurant. And he still does, because we have a few gigs, right? We do okay, but but like the touring cost versus that, and it's just starting to get started. Like, we literally started right before COVID. Like, he came up with this and we got together and we did like 4 shows before COVID. And then after COVID, it was like a year and a half to get stuff back up. And right as we're getting to the point where he might be able to we could have a Vegas show once a month and then maybe one other show, and that might make my nut. That might cover my rent and my bills. If we can just do these 2 shows a month. That's what his goal has been, right? Until then, he's still got to hold down that side job. One of the reasons I take all the Nerd Halen gigs we do, even if it eats into other stuff that I'm doing, is because I'm not going to kick money out of the mouths of these the other 3 guys who don't have other options like I do doing other shows, right? So I commit to these guys so that we can do these things, so that their dream can take off, and then it can become its own thing. And he lost his fucking house. His wife and his son live with him in an apartment in the Palisades, right on the edge of it, so that he can live near the restaurant he works in, so his kid can go to the school that he has to go to. And to hear all these people going, these blah, 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 rich motherfuckers, half the people in the fucking Palisades are old people who've owned their house since 1962. They bought it for $50,000. And yes, it's worth a lot more now, but that's not why they did it. They just, back then, they threw everything they could into having a house that was nice and near the water and whatever it was. It wasn't a lot, but it was all they had, and it's fucking gone. And so this idea that, like, you see 9 of these motherfuckers on the news that are rich, and everybody's like, well, fuck these assholes. And you're like, do you have any idea how many rich people are in fucking North Carolina and in Tennessee, in the areas that burn, before you fucking hear about it? Yeah. Because they have large ranches or they own multiple properties and the like, but they don't talk about it because it ain't Hollywood. That's really what it is. And it's
really sad when you see, it's sad when you see people throwing stones at look, I got it. They're an actor. They're rich. But it doesn't mean that they deserve to lose everything that they have.
Right.
I mean, you want to talk about, sentimental value type stuff. I mean,
the other thing too is
somebody as well.
Again, somebody who's in the entertainment industry, as someone who's in the entertainment industry, let me tell you something. Like, all those people are in optional lines of work, and this gets lost on people. You don't have to go see anybody's movie. You don't have to turn on their TV, and they're not standing between you and the other side of the road. The way gas companies are, the way real estate companies might be, the way fucking BlackRock or these other companies that buy up swaths of land. If you wanted to buy a building or a piece of land or a farm or any of that stuff, you have to be up against these. When it comes to entertainment, I don't give a fuck who they are. They're not between you and your goals ever. It is completely optional, and that's what makes it a hard job, because nobody fucking needs you. You know what I mean? Like, we are, and one of the reasons why Hollywood is quote unquote as liberal as it is because, like Democrats, we would like if the vast majority had a little extra money in their pocket to spend how they see fit, that they're not living at the edge of their needs all the time, and they can edge into stuff they want on occasion, right? That they can go, you can afford to take your family to a concert or the theater or the fucking beach or whatever it is. You need that extra cushion. So in large part, that's why Hollywood leans that way, is because they don't survive without it. There are companies in this world that only benefit when you're scrounging. And you could argue that some real estate companies are like that because they need you desperate for a place to live, where you want to live, near your family or whatever, so they can keep rents very high on the edge of just breaking you all the time. And that's why, like I said, a lot of the problems we're seeing in California have a lot to do with the city council limiting development and not allowing, any buildings over 3 stories for decades. So we don't have enough housing, so that the price of housing is kept artificially high, even in these places where it would be high anyways. And but entertainers, I don't care who the fuck they are. And this is like, I get this way when people like shit on Nickelback and stuff like that. I'm like, motherfucker, unless you're in 8th grade, I don't want to hear any griping about performers or whatever in the abstract. If they stand up like Mel Gibson and they're bigots and whatever, then fine. But in the abstract, just rando picking somebody else and you wish, Green Day would die or some nonsense. When you hear people talking like that, I'm like, fuck is wrong with you? And that's what's happening in a lot of these houses. A lot of the people who live in the houses in the Palisades and stuff are the well-to-do actors that you've seen in lots of shit, but you don't know their name. Like, they work their ass off. They take every project they can so that they can guarantee that their kid can go to college in 10 years, right? They are like busting their hump all the time, and it's never guaranteed. Never.
And most actors, if you think that they're all multi-millionaires,
right,
you are wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, you are wrong.
It's like any other business.
The guy that was in something for old men. No country for old men.
No country for
old men. I didn't know, but that guy right there, like, literally was offered almost nothing for that movie. Like, he got paid almost nothing for that movie. And like, he talks now about how he was broke.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't until after that he got something that actually, like, wow, a good amount of money. Like, the guy literally started crying. Yeah. But he'd already been in a few movies. But, I mean, it's like, this is how it is. A lot of people out there, they just try to get their face out there. And a lot of people think that automatically means they're going to be filthy rich.
Dude, it's a fucking, like, there's this assumption that there's like this Pez dispenser in Hollywood and that you just work your way to the top and then eventually you're there and you just get to stay. And anybody, like, I'll give you a great example. Fucking Steve Guttenberg. So from, I don't know if we have any Police Academy fans from back in the day. But Steve Guttenberg had a big run. Like, there was a period where Steve Guttenberg worked his ass off for, like, in the late 80s for like 4 fucking years. He did movie after movie. He was doing really, really well. He was like a charming kind of like comfortable actor. He was like in the Tom the Tom Hanks zone. Yeah, but he was in like the Tom Hanks zone. You just like, he was pleasant and good at his job, and he fit this thing, and you kind of had an everyman wise ass aspect of it. And Steve Guttenberg, they're filming up in the fucking Palisades, and this guy's talking about, like, standing in the fire, one of these reporters, whatever, and this guy walks up to him and is like, people, if you're gonna leave your fucking cars and escape, leave the keys in the car so we can move the fucking cars. We're trying to get these cars out of the way because we're trying to evacuate people, and I'm trying to move these cars, and they're, and people are leaving with their keys. It was fucking Steve Guttenberg.
Steve Guttenberg
was fucking standing there in the goddamn road, bless his heart. Fucking, and like the reporters there in fucking fire clothes and all this kind of shit. And Gutenberg's got like a fucking paper mask on that he had left over from COVID in his fucking glove box, probably, just doing this shit. Good for him. Fucking hell. Yeah. And that dude, the other thing is, like, think about what, like entertainment wise, that guy did. No skin off anybody's nose. Charming. You could think of it as pulp, but it was fun to watch, and it was fine. But he became a fucking like punchline of like asshole uncabaret alt comics for decades. Like just fucking with this dude, just making fun of him just because he did those movies at that time. No respect for the period aspect of that's the kind of movies they made at the time, and he was doing his best doing them. Just fuck this guy, kind of fuck this guy, right? Fuck him. None of them are out there. I don't. Bless his heart, but I don't see David Cross or any of the fucking uncabaret like shitheel comics who it's their professional job to just shit on everybody else in the business. I don't see them out there doing this. But I did see Steve Guttenberg doing it. And there's an element of like, that is that disconnect that we have between what's important and what's not. And the like entertainment for its value that it gives and its importance overall. That there's this, like people spend way more time. I mean, you can fucking watch the At-Me Wars on anything if you, just say Die Hard's a Christmas movie, and you can see how, like, people will get viciously involved in that conversation. Now it's become a meme, but you know what I'm talking about. Like, it's, and so, anyways, hats off to Steve Guttenberg.
You're right, and it's sad. It's really sad when they lose their home. It's sad for anybody to lose their home, and that's the thing. When you're driving wherever you live in the United States of America and you drive past a house that had burned, that hadn't been torn down yet, you look at that house and you, to me, I always think, that's an entire lifetime lost. I'm sitting right now in my office and I have a very big office. I got like 20-foot ceiling and surrounding me is literally everything that's ever been given to me and all the stuff for 24 years of military service. If I lost this stuff, I would be okay. I would survive, but I would absolutely just be devastated.
Be heartbreaking.
It'd be heartbreaking. And that's what people have to do. Put yourself in that thought. Mm-hmm. Sit in your house and look around and think, look in the walls and you see your children's pictures. You see, just all these memories throughout your life, and a fire tears all that apart.
Yeah.
And we have thousands upon thousands of people in California who have just lost everything. I don't give a shit if they're actors. I don't give a shit if they're freaking daggone people that, lifeguard at the local pool. If they lost everything. Yep. And how... where have we become as a nation that instead of everybody saying, oh my gosh, that's horrible, we've got a third of the freaking country saying, screw them. We don't give a shit. Don't help. That's what happens. This is what happens when you start championing people that absolutely are horrible human beings. When you make Donald Trump calling people names, new scum, calling people fat and stuff like that, you got to understand that your children see that shit on national television, and to them, if the president can call a woman something, then why can't I? If a president can get away with sexually assaulting a woman, then why can't I?
Right.
This is what's wrong with our country.
Yeah.
Is that instead of compassion, we automatically have we now automatically have a section of our country that automatically says, fuck you.
Right.
We don't give a shit about you.
Right. And I would also say that there's I saw in my chat room, and you know who you are, kids, a couple of the eat the rich guys throwing that phrase in the middle of this thing, with these houses on fire and all that kind of stuff. And let me just say that is grotesquely inappropriate, inhuman, and unfeeling, because it's like and lucky for me, on a show, on a television show, there's usually like two really good looking people, and then the rest of us are all normal looking. That's how it works. And so this idea that Hollywood is full of the most beautiful people in the world, it isn't. It's about 5%. The rest of the people look like everybody else. They look like we can wander around in public, right? And so that's who gets hit in a lot of these areas, in the same way that I would argue that, like, in Tennessee or North Carolina, like, none of us were like, fuck these maggots when the hurricanes hit, and you're just like, we need to take care of people. We just got to get in there and take care of people. Like, it shouldn't and doesn't matter. And that whole thing about, like, and this is, you know, part and parcel to, like, the lie that happened around FEMA wasn't helping people with Trump signs or whatever, because people with Trump signs were threatening FEMA workers with their guns because of lies he had told them.
Because of lies. Yeah. Yeah, people are going to do without now because you have basically threatened people that were here to help.
Yeah.
And Donald Trump and people, you know, they're the ones that created that. It's, you know, I have worked a lot of disasters. I actually started a program, a nonprofit, when I was just retired from the military, called LEAD, the Logan Empowerment Action and Development Community Organization. And we sent kids to school with new shoes. We just always did things. We pulled tires out of the creeks, beautification stuff. And every time there was a disaster, we were right there. And you know what? I mean, it's absolutely, you bust your ass. And I'll never forget, I was actually right outside of a church that was the location where everybody was gathering supplies. And then all of a sudden, here come this vehicle, and all these friggin' politicians jumped out. You know, all of them jumped out. Yeah. And I saw them, and they saw me, because at that point I had started to get pretty well known with the stuff that we were doing. And they wanted me to come over and get a photograph with them. And I just turned, started walking, and I stuck my thumb out, and I hitchhiked with the truck that just went by, and I just got the hell out of there. I had no desire for that. But I mean, it's just horrible what we are seeing. And, you know, when you vilify groups like FEMA, you don't know what you're doing.
Right.
And let me tell you something. For those people that talk that eat the rich stuff, look, just hope and pray that you are never in their situation. Because make no mistake about it, think about yourself losing everything that you have. Would you actually want to turn on the television and see somebody go, eat the rich? We don't give a shit about them. We don't care. You know, and once again, this is another reason that it's so bad. Donald Trump he's no longer running as a Republican. Donald Trump is now going to be the president of the United States. When you run as a Democrat or Republican, you run as a Democrat or Republican. When you win the race, you automatically become the state senator, the county commissioner, the president of all of the people in your district. And in Donald Trump's case, that's the entire United States. He is literally throwing shade at a state that he's the president of here in a few days.
Right.
You know, Donald Trump doesn't understand because he can't, because he is mentally flawed. Yeah. Donald Trump is always going to try to punch down on anybody and everybody that he can. I mean, right now, the guy is literally talking about trying to get something together so that they can start suing people like Seth Meyers when they tell a joke about Donald Trump. Right. Listen to that. Donald Trump is basically saying, I don't want people to make fun of me.
Right.
Well, if you don't want people to make fun of you, maybe take off your orange fucking makeup, you know, and stop trying to act like a tough guy. Quit your friggin' daggone masturbation dance that you always fucking do.
Right.
You know, and maybe people stop.
Here's the thing. He can't, because you and I both know he's on a mental degradation trail that is that goes one direction. Yeah. That's the reality.
I'm giving him a year, and then I guess J.D. Vance is going to take over. I don't think mentally. I think eventually the Republicans are going to go, look, we got to get this guy out of here.
Yeah, I think I agree. I think everything he's been saying about Biden is stuff that he fears in himself, and you'll notice that he stopped saying a lot of that stuff, except the sort of habitual stuff where he was quoting other people about Biden closer we got to the election. Because I think also Biden and him being close in age and Biden stepping down scared him in a way that he has not dealt with his own mortality. He has not dealt with his own aging. He has not dealt with his own ill health in a way until that dude took a pot shot at him in Butler. And then, since then, he's had the wake up that most people have when they have children or they have, close calls of any sort where they're aware of their life and it can come and go in your life. Everybody can have a near miss and then get their, their breath back, as it were. But then there's some points where when that's usually correlated with age, you see people start changing their tune. And I'm sure you've seen this around elderly people and the way they start talking, where they've got the end in sight.
Yeah.
Trump has started that language in a way he never did before. And he fought off with kind of like a false bravado around it that was very telling. Fear-based, obviously. It had come up a couple times, but he was like punching at it to keep it away as a thought. And now he can't.
The Republicans had better keep their eyes on this closely, because make no mistake about it, if they allow him to completely continue going down this path of insanity, they're going to be the ones that are going to be held accountable for this. Once again, when Donald Trump's already, this is a guy that already he's got to be hosed down twice a day because he shits his adult diapers. Mm-hmm. He already can barely, give a sentence without screwing something up. Yeah. So, my thing is the things that he acts like he wants to do that will harm America. He's literally trying to. Yeah. Go ahead.
Here's the question. So, and this is sort of like our, the prediction markets of how this is going to work out over time, because Trump, for his own self-worth, needs to be out in front, needs to be seen as the leader, seen as the winner, seen as the idea man, seen as the deal maker, and all this kind of stuff. But we all know he's incapable of actually doing it. We have not only his life and bankrupting casinos and all that kind of shit and Trump stakes and university, but also his last term to look at. So everybody around him, and this is why the markets relaxed when he put Bessent in charge of the economy as his Treasury Secretary, because everybody's like, all right, he's not going to be making these decisions. He's outsourced it to somebody who actually knows what the fuck they're doing. And it was a gay man with kids who was married, worked for George Soros. But better that guy than Trump making these decisions, right? And he can just bitch about the guy if it doesn't work, but it'll probably work, and it'll certainly work better than whatever he was going to do, and he knows it, and da-da-da. So the question is that as his brain drain continues, all the stuff they said about, they're keeping Biden out of the public eye and blah, 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 which is all bullshit, is definitely true about Trump. And so what do you think we're going to see over the next year as the stress of a real presidency happens to him? He didn't feel it last time. He will feel it this time.
And he's got to follow through with some people, because these people ain't going to laugh. They're not going to wait much longer.
Nope.
If you don't lower their grocery prices if you go ahead, I hope he tariffs Canada and they jack up them prices. Right. I'll gladly pay $6 a damn gallon to watch these asshole Trump supporters friggin' lose their shit. But let me tell you another thing too. Is that I also want to make sure people understand this. The next damn time anybody says anything about anybody trans going into some bathroom and potentially molesting a child, remember, the president of the United States has been found guilty of sexual assault of a woman in a friggin' daggone changing room. So throw that in their face every time they try to stalk that bullshit.
Right, exactly. And I mean, we'll see that, like, this kind of borderline incel machismo bullshit. We're going to see a ton of that. We saw it in the Hegseth thing yesterday, and I wanted to ask you about that. I know Phil's going to be right. Yeah, he did.
Because Donald Trump's the 47th president, I do 47 push-ups. The hell out of here, man. That's so weak.
Oh God, it was so embarrassing, and like his. Those are anonymous attacks. That was anonymous. And you're like. Okay, they're anonymous. Are they true? True or false? Did it happen? I don't give a shit if somebody, because here's the thing, if somebody came out and anonymously said I did something or I didn't do something, if I didn't do it, first of all, if I did do it and I'm not ashamed of it, I'd go, yeah, I fucking did it. That's duh. And if I didn't do it, I'd be like, I didn't do it. You won't find video of it. You won't find other witnesses or whatever. Who cares? I don't care if it's anonymous or not. Anonymous smears. That's what he said. Anonymous smears. Like, well, apparently it got some shit on you, buddy, because there's a bunch of them and they're not all anonymous. That was the other thing, is that he was using the word anonymous as a way to like have Fox News pick that ball up and run for him. Like, just take the word anonymous and pretend it's not, germane to, the conversation. It's like, they're making shit up about me, which is the Trump methodology as well.
Yeah, I tell you, I also thought Mark Wayne Mullen, I loved it when he started talking that garbage. That was hilarious. I was like, oh, well, there you go. I'm sure behind closed doors, they're all like, tell, go to jail, hang your britches on a nail.
Right. Well, and also Mullen's the guy who brought up fucking, his one good point that he brought up Gates on the floor showing pictures. Yeah. And I'm like, motherfucker, that's the only story. When people immediately think of Mark Wayne Mullins going, some of these assholes show up drunk and doing all kinds of cheating and blah, blah, blah. And you're like, yeah, motherfucker, that's what you said about Matt Gaetz. That's what you were telling us about. That's the only association people have. And the idea that he's going to be like anybody else, you're like, what do you mean, Lindsey Graham? Like, you want to talk about people who've been drunk on the floor that we've clearly seen? Like, that's the only one I can think of where it was abundantly clear, right, that he was sauced and came in to vote, right? And afterwards, they're asking him all glassy-eyed why he went to the vote in the hallway, right? That was fucking Lindsey Graham. And you're like, dude, you're talking about your side of the aisle almost exclusively. So Phil's with us, and I don't know, Phil, can you hear the Major?
Yeah, I can hear.
Major, can you hear him?
Yeah, I can hear Phil.
Okay, look at that. Because I've had issues with both guests being able to hear each other at the same time, in the past.
Phil sounds really
clear. Well, excellent.
And I want to apologize. Let me apologize for being late.
No problem. Not at all. I was going to do this real quick, see if I can, since I can hear both of you, I'll it'd be kind of fun to throw you in for a moment together if you have a second.
Hey, Phil, I got a question.
Yeah, Major. Sure.
Can people go into Ukraine, or is there like if you were in Moldova, could you actually go into Ukraine?
Yeah. Is there I'm not sure if there's a Moldova crossing. I know there's a Romanian crossing, and there's a couple of crossings into Poland. And I think there might even be another one somewhere else. But yeah, you can come across with just a U.S. passport. You don't need a visa. You don't need anything. You just. I'm
thinking about my next trip to Europe, and I'm thinking I want to go up into there. So.
Sure, you're welcome anytime. I'll get it all set up for you.
I know that all of us would watch a Major and Phil meeting of the minds in the On the Edge studio. With bated breath, we would wait for that to happen. So, the other thing too is, and I don't know, like real quick, while I have both of you together, the idea that Hegseth will be his answer on Ukraine, and his answer, which was kind of half-assed about because he doesn't, I think, know what Trump's plan is. Because they floated some sort of idea at one point, in theory. It sounds exactly like one of the lower end, plans presented by the Biden administration when they were like, okay, worst case scenario, this is how it has to be. And the Ukrainians were like, no. And we're like, we thought so, but we got to do due diligence, and bring it up at least once. The same thing seems to be true of whatever the plan that Trump put forward. And they rejected it immediately. Both sides rejected it immediately. So just thoughts on Hegseth and what maybe the response is in Ukraine, and what your thoughts were, Major, too, on that. To the Major first, I guess. Yeah.
But you're asking me about Hegseth?
Just about Hegseth's answers on Ukraine and foreign policy, and not knowing seeing any of that stuff. Yeah.
Well, I mean, but that's the thing is, I think somebody actually said it where they said, maybe you need to go back and do some educate yourself.
Yeah, Tammy Duckworth.
I mean, he's Asian, and he was like Japan. He was no, come south.
Yeah.
Myanmar, Thailand, Cambodia, Laos, Indonesia, Philippines. Right. Yeah, that's it.
The South China Seas related areas, right, which he just has no grasp of.
Right. If you're going to be taking over as the Secretary of Defense, leading an organization that has 3 million people in it, maybe you need to be educated on this stuff. This is one of the reasons why that 99.9% of the time, 100% of the time, up until now, it's always been a retired 4-star general or admiral.
Right.
Because after 40 years of military service at that level, in the military, you go up, it's like building blocks.
Yes.
And when you are a major, you're here. When you're a colonel, you're here. When you're a general officer, you're up here. And there is a level of education for each and every one of those steps. Mm-hmm. And that's why we put people that understand the world. They know what's going on in the world. It's important.
Yeah.
He does not have that. Right. And it's an absolute travesty, and it'll be dangerous. Yeah. Because once again, he's not going to tell Donald Trump that he won't use military forces on Americans. Right. They won't do it, because at the end of the day, they know that if Donald Trump says it, they're going to try to follow through with it.
Yeah, it's a matter. It's how high. It's he's the commander in chief, and therefore, Phil, was there any response to the Hegseth stuff yesterday? Were people watching?
I didn't speak. I didn't speak to anybody about it here in Ukraine. Him being wishy-washy and kind of what do you say, it was a minor incident or something like that? The
minor incursion in 2014,
minor
right?
Incursion in 2014. It shows his ignorance of the conflict. And anything in this region, when folks start shooting at one another, it's never minor. Need I remind folks that both world wars of the 20th century started as a result of complications stemming from this region and the collapse of empire and the clash of empires. Nothing happens in this part of the world that is incidental or can be easily dismissed, because again, there's just so many empires that get tugged, get pulled in, and it just sucks people into this conflict. So that's why it's important for us to stop it here, because and he clearly doesn't understand that.
Right.
So, and also to the major's point, I never had the honor to wear the uniform, but I spent a lot of time around guys who were serving in our armed forces. And there's a reason why we use that word, serve. They serve.
Right.
Who are working hard to climb up, the chain of command, and they earn their ranks. And it's very difficult. And to get this guy as jumped up to Sec Def, what general is going to want to report to Hegseth?
Exactly. Only bootlickers.
Despicable.
Yeah, only bootlickers who are looking for a favor, to get favor with Donald Trump, like your Michael Flynn's. Yeah. But once again, for every Michael Flynn, there's 1,000 phenomenal leaders that I hope remember that no matter what the order is given, if it is unlawful, immoral, or illegal, you have a duty to absolutely refuse that order. I think it's important also for people to understand that Russia has been our number one adversary.
Yeah.
Since literally, after World War II. And Ukraine has been absolutely kicking the shit out of our number one adversary.
Yeah.
And you know what? We have been able to avoid losing American troops because we send funding over and we help Ukraine. Remember, Ukraine was a sovereign nation that was attacked. And how on earth do we have so many people, because Donald Trump and his bullshit, because he's a bootlicker to daggone Putin, and probably has some piss tapes out there or something. But he's actually convinced some of his followers that now Russia is who we need to support. Yeah. And make no mistake about it. If Ukraine falls, Moldova will be next. I don't know how long it will take him if Russia wants to really cross that line into Poland, because make no mistake about it, that is not something you want to do. Poland absolutely can handle business. But they can go down into Romania, and then they can continue going south, into Bulgaria, and they can go right. What he wants to do is Vladimir Putin wants to take it back to the old Cold War, the Iron Wall. That's what he wants. He wants those places back so that he can daggone use their resources, because he knows that Russia is absolutely in a world of hurt.
Well,
it's not just tanks either. I mean, he absolutely could target the Baltics as well.
Yeah,
which would call into question Article 5 because they're NATO members. But it doesn't have to be tanks. If he wins this battle, he will be reinvigorated. He will have a new source of income. He'll have the Europeans will be terrified, especially with a non-reliable partner in Donald Trump, and they will exert undue influence on the continent, on all of Europe, if they win here. If Ukraine is defeated and they are resurgent, they will exert power, even if it isn't military power. The threat of military power will be enough to intimidate Europe. And,
to that point, we've heard a bunch. Hegseth said this yesterday, that and this talking point gets pushed around a lot, that Putin and maybe Hamas, whatever, saw the pullout in Afghanistan, saw it as weakness, and then went, "This is our time to move." First of all, I would call bullshit on that in general. But if it was, let's just give them the benefit of the doubt. If that was the case, it was the worst strategic read of military circumstance in the history of humanity. If Putin saw our leaving from Afghanistan and went, "This is the time to go," and then just lost what the latest count, 812,670 people to claim 85 feet past what he had before this shit started. And his reasoning was America's weak and NATO's on its heels because Afghanistan. It was like the biggest misread of military ever.
And we never lost a fight. We never lost a fight.
Right. It's so bizarre.
And it's also that's bull.
Yeah.
That's just bull.
It's a lie to start with, right?
Well, because this was going to happen no matter what.
Right.
The Russians cannot maintain themselves as empire without Ukraine. They have to take Ukraine back. It's part of their
grain. They need that grain,
and they need that grain. They need the people, the resource of the people. They need the territorial expansion. They can't control the Black Sea unless they have Odessa.
Right.
This was always going to happen, whether or not anything that we did in Afghanistan. It just maybe they changed the timetable, but it was always going to happen. I have spoken to enough people in the diplomatic corps, both in Western diplomatic, different, representatives of their, foreign service and our foreign service. Everybody knew that Putin was hell-bent on doing this. One way or the other, he was always going to come for Ukraine. So to say that it was a reaction to anything that we did in Afghanistan or anywhere else in the world is bullshit. And it's I speak to Ukrainian. I got a great interview a couple of weeks back with a Ukrainian girl out in Kharkiv who said, "You Americans, you have this sense of yourself as so important on the globe that nothing happens without your involvement. Sorry, guys, but some things aren't about you. This is about an imperial power and a colonial power." Now, of course, America, being the largest military on the planet and being, the safeguarder of the international order. But her point is well taken. This is about Russia and Ukraine. This is about, the Kremlin needing to have this land and to reassert its empire.
I agree.
It's just,
I would
that
argue,
narrative is.
I would argue that had it not, there is a level of self-importance the United States can take out of it if it's not misplaced, which is the idea that the Russians might have moved sooner on this if they weren't worried about pushback from everybody, because they've desperately needed all the things that they've needed from Ukraine and their former satellites this whole time. But they have feared the United States and NATO, or they would have done it sooner. The only reason they're salami slicing is because they fear the reaction by the West and losing to it.
If we pull out of NATO, that is a gift that Donald Trump gives to Vladimir Putin. That's exactly what that is. You know, it's absolutely sickening. I will tell you that the Baltics, we're talking Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, they have no desire to ever go back with Russia. I mean, they actually have like real anger issues when it comes to Russia. So, no, there's nobody that wants to go back to the old map.
Right.
And I think this is absolutely horrific. If Donald Trump pulls us out of NATO, I think it's horrible. Ukraine. I mean, look, Ukraine is sending firefighters to California.
Yeah.
It kills me that Donald Trump is literally going after the very people that are our closest allies. Let me tell you something. I can tell you right now that what we have done under Joe Biden for Ukraine, we have a friend for life. Life. I think Zelensky will love the American people to the day he dies. And Donald Trump wanting to turn our backs on Ukraine is just like him wanting to shit on Canada and Mexico. This guy, he just don't get it. And this is where we are. So we have to wait and watch what's going to happen over the next year. And I really believe Donald Trump will get about a year before he does something that literally says that we've got to put J.D. Vance in. And I hate J.D. Vance too. But Donald Trump is absolutely losing his mind.
Yeah.
And I think it's actually starting to really show. They're going to try to hide it as long as they can. And when they do that, they're going to be the ones that's going to own that too. So, it's sad.
Yeah. Well,
then just one other note on that, just to follow up, is also you got to understand there is an issue, I think, within the Trump camp and within not just MAGA Trump land, but also a lack of understanding of who the Ukrainians are and why they're fighting this way. Even if we do withdraw support for Ukraine, they won't stop fighting.
No.
So what the alternative then will be is we will have to sit on the sidelines and watch a country that we had made so many promises to be systematically destroyed.
Yeah.
Are we really going to sit there on the sidelines? And Trump doesn't like it. That will be on his. That'll be put at his foot. It'll be his fault if he says we're not going to support Ukraine anymore, and the Ukrainians go, well, we're really upset about that because we really needed you and you made promises, but we're going to keep fighting no matter what. And then they start dying in massive numbers. And Trump sits there in the White House and watches.
Yeah, I kind of think people need to throw up in his face and say, look, we have actually sent whatever the amount, over $100 billion to help Ukraine in this war. And if you come in here and pull the plug on this, you are literally throwing all that away. You're throwing all that away.
You think even Afghanistan looked bad?
Yeah.
Wait.
Yeah. You are this is an investment. This is an investment on a safe, secure Europe. That's what this is. And if you turn your back on that and throw all that away, you risk losing everything. And I will tell you, I love listening to the United Kingdom. Standing up to Donald Trump. Everybody needs to stand up to Donald Trump. Donald Trump is a bully. And Donald Trump, you have to understand that bully is a bully. I don't give a shit if he's a president or if he's that kid sitting 3 rows across from you in the first grade eating his friggin' boogers. A bully is a bully. And sometimes the best way to deal with the bully is friggin' daggone make him shit their teeth. Fact.
Yep. Absolutely. Thanks, Major, for sticking around for a moment with us, with Phil. I appreciate it, brother.
Sorry for being late, Phil. Stay safe. I'll start linking out.
If you come over, Major, if you come over, I will make sure that everything goes smoothly.
It'll be at least
in a single problem.
It'll be at least in about a year when I do it. But make no mistake about it. If it's still, I want to go. All right, hey, Hal, appreciate y'all. You guys are great. Stay safe, Phil. Airborne.
Absolutely. Right, be well. All right. And then I'm going to jump over to Phil in here and I'll throw you into the mix and we can So, oops, hold on one second. And then the thing. There we go. The biggest aspect of over the last little bit, and this is kind of a point I was going to make while the major was on and when you were first coming in, was this demographic issue in Russia that is part of the reason. Again, this goes to the inevitability of them doing this. That it had more to do with the fact that they're just running out of people, and that the war just exacerbated that. And it was a bet. Like, they were already looking at this demographic fail. They don't have enough people to make more people. So we got to go seize an old territory that has our kind of people on it. And the Ukrainians are genetically a lot closer to the kind of people that Russians consider themselves more so certainly than the Georgians or the Chechens. The Georgians, I think they look at as almost like Italians or Greeks comparatively. But the Ukrainians they see as basically cut from the same genetic cloth as your average Russian. And so they're like, let's seize this territory, and the children that we get from there and the children that we make from there will expand and solve our demographic issue beyond even the issue of grain and food and resources and gas and all that other stuff. If you run out of people, you're just kind of fucked. And that's where they are. That's the current nature of the Russian demographic. In the same way that China has the same fucking problem. China is, there is no point where China is going to make or have the enough number of Han Chinese, which is the kind they want to keep. And again, this is why it doesn't matter that they have the Xinjiang province. It doesn't matter that they have the territories that border Cambodia or Vietnam. It's because those aren't the Chinese that they think should run the place. The Han Chinese are, and this is very much like, I guess, the Germans and the Bavarians and the Poles and stuff. They're close enough for jazz, but not exactly the master race. And so the Han Chinese under Xi Jinping and that crowd have decided we're it and everybody else got to go. So they're slowly but slowly brooming. I mean, they're placing people in Tibet, for fuck's sake, to seed a race of people in that area in a way that I don't people grasp. The Russians seem to be doing a similar thing in terms of people they consider kind of real Russians. And the Ukrainians would fall under that, it seems.
Yeah, well, for centuries under the empire, they were called Malorossiya, which is just Little Russia, by Moscow and St. Petersburg, depending on what year you're talking about, because their capital moved. The Russian, and they're already actually very intermixed. A lot of Ukrainian families have people in Russia, and a lot of Russians have family here in Ukraine. So there's been a lot of that going on. Now, if they were subdued militarily, if Ukraine lost this war and they were occupied, there would be partisan warfare, guerrilla warfare, there would be an insurgency, but not everybody. Human beings, ultimately, when push comes to shove, there's going to be a big percentage that will go, well, we were abandoned by the West, and I would rather, at least I'm alive, I live, I can marry and have children. They will submit to the cruelty of the Russians, but the Russians will have to be incredibly cruel to put down the insurgency, guerrilla warfare, partisan warfare. And the Russians are going to have to be incredibly cruel to the general population because there'll be passive resistance as well. Yeah. They will not be welcomed, but eventually, can they beat it out of the Ukrainians? It's possible. After another decade of brutal repressions, you might get a subservient Ukrainian
but you
nation.
Also have to have you have to have the people to pull it off. And like we said, we've seen them pulling soldiers from North Korea. We've seen them using Shahed drones from Iran and all this shit. But once, the whole point of them passing this 800,000 killed or wounded thing, which again, never mind the people who stampeded out of the country and are never coming back. Like there are a lot of Russians, young men and women, who specifically were like that beat feet at the beginning of the war, and are going to live in Europe the rest of their lives. They're never going home, in any, because unless there was another 91 and there was some sort of anchor to it that they were like, okay, it would be like Syria, right? So one of the conversations about Syria falling is that will the Syrians that are living abroad in exile that were running from Assad, will they come back and help rebuild the country? That has yet to be seen in any kind of major way, and it doesn't look like it. It doesn't look like they're in a big hurry to come back and rebuild Syria. It seems like a lot of them, in the way that you're saying people will go, at least I'm alive. A lot of the folks that have left Russia or the area that are part of that Russian demographic issue aren't coming back because at least I'm alive and I'm not going to be held to some sort of standard. And the Ukrainians aren't going to kill me, just murder me in the street. And
I don't live in a shithole. I mean,
right,
Russia is a shithole. I don't care I don't care. St. Petersburg and Moscow are not Russia.
Right.
The great bulk of people live in really miserable living conditions.
Right.
Not to over exaggerate. I mean, there is, you could probably find a nice building to live in any Ekaterinburg or Chelyabinsk or all these kind of far-flung Siberian cities. It's not everything, but it is not well supported in the provinces because there is the problem that Russia has always had in its power structure is that everything gets sucked up to the capital. Mm-hmm. It's all power is binary. Somebody wins, somebody loses. And they don't reinvest in the provinces. So they're really miserable, sad lives. And a lot of people, I think you're right, will not be going back. A lot of Russians who left will not be going back. And I think a lot of Russians who left are now going to be seeing how life is lived outside of Russia. Right. And are going to be like, well, even if things did get better, and even if we did change the power in the Kremlin, and even if we did stop this god-awful war, I don't want to go back and live like that.
Right.
It's shitty.
How do you keep them down on the farm once they've seen gay Paris? This guy Harley Balzer, who's an emeritus professor at Georgetown University, made a point that I think is very similar to you. Let me see if I can pop this up on here. And pardon me for the not having the major's name under you for a second there, Phil. But this is from an article on the demographic bomb. And this is his statement. He goes, "The impact on Russian society is devastating," said Harley Balzer, emeritus professor of government and international affairs at Georgetown University. "From Russia's perspective, winning the war in Ukraine is the smaller problem. The bigger issue is it going to be a viable country afterwards regardless?" And that's kind of what you and I have been talking about. Like, how do you put this toothpaste back in the tube? This is fucked. Like, this is on such a scale that I think it's hard even for people to grasp because there's no there. What the fuck does the rest of the world want from Russia at all? What do they
as we wean ourselves off of fossil fuels?
Yeah. Right. What and even then, we've found replacement sources for it. Even Trump's whole thing about he wants to be the number one. We have more than Saudi Arabia, more than Russia, blah, blah, blah. Okay, that will drive the cost of oil down because it's self-interest here. That's what he wants to do. But that oil is sold on the international market. We have not nationalized our oil, and we're not going to anytime soon. So we're going to be selling that oil on the market, and the market will be lowering to that point. Now, last time Trump tried to do this, and he had nothing to do with this is actually natural gas stuff started under Obama, but the Russians and the Saudis started doing this game of chicken where they coordinated as an OPEC plus country kind of thing where they tried to drive the price down to cut off the amount of money that the American oil system could come up with to use to fund getting new natural gas wells online. So they the fossil fuel companies in America were using the trend towards natural gas to use whatever profits they had to expand not into more oil wells, but into natural gas. And so Russia and Saudi Arabia did this partnership to try and tank the price of oil temporarily to undercut undercut that so that they could at least get ahead. It is very similar to Elon Musk asking for an AI pause for everybody. OpenAI, all these, they all got to pause. It's dangerous. Meanwhile, we know now he wasn't pausing his shit at all. And the reason he wanted it was so that he could catch up, so that Grok and XAI could catch up to even the lower models of OpenAI and these other companies, right? He didn't really give a shit. He just wanted this break. And Russia and Saudi Arabia didn't really give a shit about each other in this fight. That this was both of them using international, because if they fix the prices, there could be a violation of international law and all this other stuff, and we could override it and yada yada. And
OPEC laws.
Yeah, OPEC laws and all that shit. So they had to act like they were fighting to do this, but it was just like, oh, I can't believe you're attacking me. It was so fucking lame. But they did this to undercut. Now, Trump, this is one of the areas where, because he's promised everything to everybody, and because he's run as fucking Santa Claus, and because he says he can solve everything so simply, and because he's so fucking smart and everybody's so fucking dumb, that he can't let them do this to him again. And so he's going to have to increase output in the United States. Like if let's say he gets Anwar this time around, that floods the market. This is if oil companies even want the extra oil online. This floods the market and drives the price of oil down tremendously. Does it give us a bunch of oil for a while and drive consumer prices down to some degree? Yeah. Does it solve the supply chain issues? No. Does it help Russia? No. It's fucking terrible for Russia. So here's the thing. If Putin's talking to Trump and Trump has to follow what Putin says, how does he? He's between a rock and a 3-story window, right?
Yeah, and Putin, Russia, because of global warming, is also looking at maybe expanding maybe some of the thaw or the change in climate will allow them to get more fertile land, or maybe the ice, ledge will recede enough in the Arctic that the trade route over the top of Russia will open up. But these are big ifs, and they don't happen quickly.
Nope.
Although Russia is putting in infrastructure along the Northeast Passage, that's the Arctic passage that connects them to Asia, and they'll take a toll and they'll control the shipping lanes and all the rest of it. I mean, it's there's so many changes are happening, but they're not going to happen tomorrow. And I don't know if Putin has the breathing space.
Well, again, let's look at the demographic.
Keep going on with the war or to end the war.
Right, but let's go on with the demographic. Like, let's say you set up a bunch of fucking shipping setups along the northern part of the country, and you've got all these towns that are now important to scale and blah blah blah. First of all, the Chinese are going to want those. They've already changed their maps to include old portions of Russia that they lost in the Russo-Sino War, and so they're they would like that passage just as much as anybody else. I think even more, you could argue. And where are the people going to come from to service all those facilities? Who are they? I mean, what are you going to do? And it's like the United States is in a special circumstance in that, as anti-immigrant as we are right now, in theory, the whole H-1B visa fight shows that we're not beyond, if we need workers for a specific thing, setting up a plan to incorporate those workers in. Because as bigoted as Trump and his ilk are, they don't have a problem drawing in places. Certainly not on the scale that China and Russia do, which are ethnocentric countries no matter what, right? And that the difference between citizens and service humanity in Russia or in China, is everything that the most slacktivist, anti-racist people in our country will say about America is absolutely true about Russia, as far as racism and class, right? Same thing in China. everything that they even go like America's systemically racist, and that you know there are walls that make sure that people have you can't advance and and redlining and everything that you've ever heard those folks say is materially true about Russia, not 50 years ago, presently, right now.
And worse,
right? And it's never going to change. There's no even desire to change it or lip service about it that I'm aware of. Like I haven't seen anywhere where they're like, Russia is even when we talk about how they're like Russia and China are always talking about America as hypocrites and all this kind of stuff, and they will go after us for sort of like racial disparities in the country when they show up or their news stories. But you don't see them going, they're not open like us. Like they don't even turn it towards themselves. They simply say they speak all this, but they don't actually do it. But they don't actually do it like we do. We're the real good guys in this. They just avoid that entirely. You will never see like Kremlin officials or CCP officials talking about the racial openness and how we live up to the standard the West can only do it. They do it about technology. They'll do it about commerce. They'll do it about, I don't know, technological productivity or some shit like that. But they will never do it about race, class, like, I don't know, gender, like any of the stuff that's important to Western society.
If you go back to episode 7 of On the Edge, where I interviewed Terrell Jermaine Starr, who's an African American but who's lived in the former Soviet Union space for 25 years, Ukraine, Georgia, Central Asia. He lays that all out quite well in that the way that the Russians treat minorities in Russia is just, it's worse than our Jim Crow laws.
Right.
I mean, it's just, they are, and you know your place in Russia. If you are a Tajik who goes to bring his produce to market in Russia, you are well told where your space is, where you're where you're allowed to go, where you're not allowed to go, where those boundaries are, and don't ever think that you're ever going to get out from under. They are, because and a part of this plays back into that whole conception of power and human interaction as always binary. Somebody's going to win, somebody's going to lose.
Right.
And if Russia is not going to treat any Tajiks pretty well, because again,
they lost and they're going to keep losing.
Yeah, they lost, and you're going to keep losing. That's right. There are less of you than there are of us.
And if you win at all, that means I'm losing. Right? Yeah. That's their idea. So,
that's their mentality.
Right. And to your point, you brought this up a bunch over the years, and it's nice to see some of the things that you've been talking about finally kind of making it to the surface after all this fucking time in these conversations about stuff. This is from a similar article, related to the demographic stuff that I was talking about. It's this life expectancy for young men in Russia is on par with a fourth world country. Life expectancy at age 15 for a Russian man right before COVID-19, was about the same as his counterpart in Haiti. A 15-year-old in Haiti has the same life expectancy as a 15-year-old in Russia. Think before COVID. Fucking before COVID. Like, wrap your fucking head around. This is Russia. Again, this is supposed to be the second most powerful military in the world, the supplier of oil for all of Europe, the one of the few necessary countries attached to Europe. Without Russia, our houses go dark, right? That's the story we were sold. A large study into why Russian males had such short life expectancies, published in 2014, concluded one of the main factors is early deaths was excessive alcohol consumption. This is like yep. Do you know, I mean, to drink yourself to death takes fucking work. Like, it's not like a heroin overdose or in the United States we talk, and rightly so, about fentanyl and the damage that it does. But you can fuck around and die of a fentanyl overdose fairly quickly. You can get a drug that you think is something else, take it and you're dead. You can fuck up your dose. You can take heroin and it has some of it in there, and that's too much for your system. It doesn't take years to do it. Drinking yourself to death, and I'm sure a portion of these are like redneck deaths, like drunk people going, watch this, and then, right. But, and I'll show you what I mean in just a second, if I can, online. But a lot of them, you know, one of the saddest stories in rock and roll was Steve Clark, the guitar player from Def Leppard. He died of alcohol poisoning, kind of like Leaving Las Vegas, that he drank himself to death. And at the time of his death, his skin looked like orange peel. It was thick and pasty and bloated and dense from the alcohol consumption. And it took him months to do that. Like it was fucking work. And he was trying, you could argue. It was sad. But like in Russia, it's just par for the fucking course, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, you've never seen anything like it in Russia when it comes to alcohol consumption. It's just absolutely endemic, and it's
that's not going to change.
It
Let's say the war
just
stops
everywhere. No, that's not going to change.
Right.
That's not going to change.
And if your demographic bomb is based on a cultural aspect, like you can't stop shooting yourself, you can't stop, you know, like whatever the trend is, like it's basically like fucking Logan's Run with alcohol. That's what Russia is right now. Russia is fucking a bar in Logan's Run, where instead of jumping into the giant pit, you just drink your way into it. Everybody gets drunk enough and stumbles into the pit in Logan's Run instead of being told by the big voice to go report to the hole in the ground. And that's not going to change.
And I've had to. I don't know if I've ever told this story here before, but one of the things that I had to do when I was a producer in Russia was we would go to these. We'd either go to a military facility or an industrial site or whatever it was. And invariably, you would be taken to the big grand poobah, whoever, whether the general in charge, the head of the factory, whatever it was. And I mean, with considerable frequency, he would bring out a bottle of something, and it would normally be some sort of hard liquor. They love to show off that they had like whiskey, because everybody thinks Russians drink
all vodka,
vodka, and so they kind of they look at me. I'm sophisticated and international.
Right.
I've got Jim Beam Red, or whatever the hell it was, and because in a television crew, you can't have your cameraman being too drunk because he can't operate the camera. He's too drunk to do it. You can't have your correspondent on camera with a microphone slurring away. So who does it fall to? To engage in this pissing contest, it would be the producer. It would be me.
Right.
So I would sit there and they would go film in the factory. And I would sit and the thing is, they do it as a form. It is a pissing contest,
right? Especially
with foreigners. It's a way of exerting your masculinity over. It's stupid, but it is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, there would be times when my cameraman and my producer, my correspondent would come back, and I'd be sitting in the chair just like, you're just gonna have to, roll me
wheel me
car.
Right.
Just
right.
Because I'm, and then there's the factory head going there. I got him really, really drunk.
Right.
Your guy couldn't handle his liquor. And I'm like, but this is part and parcel with the culture.
Right. And and like I said, that's never going to change. Let me show you something real quick, because it's very hard for me to find footage where it doesn't actually show the death of one of these people while they're doing this. This is a thing that goes on in Russia, these train surfers. And they, let's see if I can, hold on one second. Let me move, I got to move this down so you can see it. There it is. So check this out. So this guy's got, unlike his predecessors, this guy has insulated gloves on, okay? A lot of these guys just do this without the gloves, and they die. But watch what he's doing. This is common. Like, I can't tell you how many of these fucking videos I see. The only difference is this is one of the few I could find where they don't show the guy dying. Because it's always followed up with this cooked human being fucking hanging on the thing like they licked the third rail of the L train in Chicago. And so these guys train surf in Moscow. Yeah. They go up and they just fucking do this all the time. And
well, you've got no future.
Yeah.
Your country is shit.
Yeah.
You know, unless you are a criminal or an oligarch,
right,
or in the family of an oligarch, you're not. I mean, there is no middle class to speak of,
right?
And there's fuck all else for you to do with your life except for drink and do stupid shit like that, because life sucks, man. Life is boring, and you're just there to be, you know, used up by the state and chucked away.
Yeah.
And it's utterly dehumanizing.
Right.
So, you know, those kind of things happen all the time. People do I've seen people do really, really dumb things. And yes, usually alcohol is involved in like, you know, in the middle of nowhere, Russia. I mean, these are the people who like bring in like bear cubs into their house and raise a bear. You know, a huge brown bear just for shits and giggles, you know, and it's just like, he's going to eat your face one day, but whatever. It's just so damn boring. It's dehumanizing.
Well, I mean,
that's the whole point of the
You hear this whole thing in, we deal with this all the time in the South, and I'm sure the major would back me up on this, is there's this running gag for the longest time of, what's the last thing a redneck says before he dies? Watch this, right? That's and Russians are exactly like this. I mean, that's where all these fucking surfers come from. The tower climbers, like the Russian guys who climb to the top of these towers, no parachute. We have cliff jumpers in the United States that get arrested because they climb up, they go to the top of a building and jump off of it, but they're treating it like a canyon. They've got a fucking parachute, right? These guys just climb up there and film themselves, and then you're like, I gotta climb down now. Like, and they die all the time. Like, it's like, and the saddest thing to me is, and this is a big part of Russia, and we talk about like the lack of homes in places like LA, where, you know, especially after the fires, people are going to need places to live and development and stuff. And you look at all these like vacant buildings in China, or these old buildings in Russia that were built, you know, the construction's still there. There's still these long rows of apartment buildings, but they're ass and they're not taken care of. And you're like, you know how many people could live in that? Like, every homeless person in the world could live in one of these apartments and be able to make something of themselves. But you guys got to keep fucking pissing in the punch bowl. You got to, like, you can't, you're unwelcoming to strangers. You just, nobody can move to the country and emigrate to it. Like, it's so fucking lame.
Yeah. I mean, and, you know, you are taught this in Russia at a very early age, the worthlessness of life, that you're just, I will never forget one of the first years that I was living in Moscow. There was a the masthead picture, the large picture on the cover of the Moscow Times was, so every year there's major, like, man-made lake in the middle of Moscow called Patrashy Ponds. And every year when the snow and ice melt, there's a special service that goes bobbing for apples, quote unquote, in Patrashy Ponds and pulling bodies out of people who fell through during the winter drunk, usually, and who, you know, freeze and die, or, you know, die in whatever. Either they're too, inebriated to get out, or they freeze, or whatever it is. But there's a bodies, plural. It's lots of them that they pull out when the thaw happens. And this, I'll never forget this front page issue of the Moscow Times, there were these two young boys standing maybe 15 feet away from the dredger in their underwear because they had been swimming in the pond. And the guys had said, boys, you can't, presumably, either, they were, watching the dredger or whatever it was, but while the dredger was there, they weren't swimming. So they were standing looking on. And the message that sends, and the message that is constantly sent to you as a child, as you grow up in Russia, is life is cheap.
Yeah.
Life's really cheap.
Specifically
It's
yours.
Yeah, specifically yours.
Right.
It's just a very, very different view on the value of human life and on the relationship between the state and the citizen, and what is important and who's responsible for what in that relationship.
Yeah.
And it's brutal. It's just absolutely brutal. We do not want it. I mean, we don't want it in the West in general. We sure as hell don't want it in America. And a lot would have to change in America for that to happen. But, that's why the Ukrainians are fighting as hard as they are, because that lifestyle, that perception of life, is not, it's just not anything anybody wants.
I want to show everybody. I'm not going to play the audio on this, but see this group of guys on the screen right here, guys. Everybody, see this group of guys right here? Just a big mass of dudes. Okay, they're all headed this way. They're all headed from left to right on your screen. Okay, now the camera will pan over, and you will see a group of guys moving from right to left. See these guys? These guys are all wearing red shirts because they all showed up that day because they're all on the same kind of team. And now, are these Ukrainian partisans against Russian partisans? Is this over the building of a road that divides a neighborhood or whatever? Nope. Just nothing fucking better to do. And these assholes, and I will just run around and kick each other's ass until some folks run away or the tear gas, and then they will keep kicking somebody's ass on the ground until they're out or near dead or whatever, because this is Tucker Carlson's idea of a good time. I don't know. This is and there are endless fucking videos of that. That's an older one that I remember having back in the day. So it was in my links. But the only reason this is slowed down is because all those guys, if they meet for these kind of fights, get rounded up and sent to the front.
Yeah.
That's the only reason they've stopped doing this. It's Gangs of Russia. But the interesting thing, Remo in our chat room says Gangs of Russia. In Gangs of New York, it was about territorial disputes over the value of the land and who would form the town and decide from a religious standpoint or an economic standpoint who runs things. You can almost understand it when you don't have that much of a functioning government. You don't really have a police force to speak of yet. The country is relatively young. You're going through industrial growth or whatever. This is a well-established country that's been around for a very fucking long time. So the idea that you're now starting from scratch again, or you're just so fucking bored, you meet in a parking lot to beat the fuck out of a bunch of strangers, and they show up too. Like, wrap your head around how fucked up your life and existence would have to be. Because say what you will about colors or the Crips and the Bloods, you could argue that they were fighting over economic dominance in an economically depressed area. Right? That they were like, it's gross and it's violent and it's sad and it's the worst aspects of kind of like resource capitalism over who owns what corner and what drug you're going to sell. But at least it kind of makes sense in a self-interest way. You can kind of go, well, is this that different from farmland back in the 12th century? Right? You know what I mean? Like somebody's
grazing rights,
yes.
Whether you're doing sheep or
and cattle,
cows.
right? Yeah. Is at least makes sense in that way, right? But this is just fucking gibberish for gibberish sake, right?
Yeah, nothing better to do. Get
yeah.
out my aggression. I'm bored. I'm drunk. I've got a couple of kids. My wife hates me because I'm drunk, all the time. So there's no solace there.
And I'm tired of beating her, even though I can get away with it and it's legal. Domestic violence is legal in Russia. Can we just start there?
Yep. All of this kind of crap. It's a look.
Yeah.
I get attacked for saying stuff like this, but I'll say it nevertheless. There's an illness, there's a sickness in Russia that has existed for a very, very long time. And it needs to go through some fundamental reforms that even they themselves know that they need to do. But until they do, it is brutal. It is harsh. Life there is short and it's pretty miserable. And you live not a lot of hope and joy in your life.
Right.
Obviously, that's a really big statement to make about a country of 140 million or whatever it is now. But there's something fundamentally wrong there.
Yeah.
And it needs to change. And look, we have problems in America. Obviously, we have major problems that need to be addressed. But there's a couple of differences, and they're really important ones.
Right.
One is that we identify those problems and we speak about them openly. And two, we try and get better. In Russia, it's deny the problems, stick your head in the sand, and never, ever, ever try and change anything. So it's just, I really don't. I want Russia to be better for itself. I want Russia to lose this war and have a real crisis, identity crisis, and a crisis of, where do we go from this, and maybe take a good, long, hard look in the mirror and finally tackle the reforms and the changes within the society that need to be made.
Right. But
they're just not doing it. They're not, and they resent us every time we, if we do they hate that, so, and they always go with the argument of, oh, you're just as bad, you're just as bad. You're just hypocrites, and you like to cover it up with all these kind of sweetness and glitter and all, and no, we are better. Our system's better. Our system's better because we have agency, as flawed as perhaps that is. Do I know what crocodile is? Yes, I do know what crocodile is. Yeah. And it is, it's kind of like the bath salts kind of thing.
Yeah. It's also it's common in Florida as well. Like there was a big period where it was, interestingly enough, while Donald Trump is cozying up to Russians, right? And Trump Tower Miami is like a prenatal ward for Russian anchor babies. All of a sudden, crocodile starts making its way through Florida. Yeah, it fucking rots your skin. It's like the zombie drug. That dude who attacked people on the freeway down there and was biting people's faces, was on crocodile. This is, again, 2013, 2014, 2015, leading up into, Trump's cozying up with the Russians the most, right? And it died off here. It did, there were less of it was being used. It's a desomorphine. It's they kept calling it the zombie drug or whatever. And fentanyl, you could argue, took its place. Is more readily available over here and all that kind of stuff, but there's a lot of it in Russia, and it explains a lot of how folks end up the way they do. Yeah, it's like having a flesh-eating bacteria that also gives you a high. Before we're at the end of the show, and I want to thank Phil for not only sticking around, but also talking to the Major at the top of the show. On the Edge is his podcast. Please check it out. It's on Sundays. Do you have a new episode this week you want to tease and talk to us about?
We're going to be speaking to an Estonian vlogger, and was a fundraiser and a guy who kind of drove vehicles into Ukraine, but he got married and he's trying to build a family, so he stepped away. We'll be having he's from Estonia. His name is Artur Rehi. Artur was a NATO soldier. He went through military conscription in Estonia for training, and he's it gives us the opportunity to talk about the Baltics and where their place is in all of this mess between Russia and the West. It's another good one. Artur's a very fascinating guy to talk to, so that'll be on this Sunday with Artur Rehi.
Gotcha. That's very cool.
Episode 31.
So yeah, On the Edge, and that's on Philip's YouTube channel. Do you have an audio version of it as a podcast yet, or any of that stuff? Or
no, yeah,
okay.
I'm still. I there's actually something that's kind of taken my focus away from that, but I'm still intending on doing that. Yeah.
Gotcha. Cool. Excellent. Well, thanks for being on here. Greatly appreciate it. And I will see you on Saturday. I will be in DC.
We'll talk on Saturday.
Yeah,
I will be in DC. All right.
Yeah, I'll be in DC. Not sticking around for the inauguration for a couple of reasons. One, fuck him, and two, it's going to be like 12 degrees. And so I'm going to kind of, I'm not going to watch it necessarily, but I'm going to enjoy the fact that Trump's going to be like, if he has to move it indoors, I'm just going to laugh my ass off because God clearly hates him. And, but we shall see what we'll see. I'm sure maggots will be out there, and we'll have, the liberals are causing them to have to cut off toes. This was all weather manipulation. Marjorie Taylor Greene it was all snow seeding. Anyways, much.
One last
Yes.
thing before we go.
Sure.
And I wanted to. I'm kicking myself that I'm only bringing this up now. Clearly, the Russians are involved in the coverage of the LA fires. Be aware of
yes.
this, okay.
Right.
They are taking advantage of the catastrophe in Los Angeles to insert their own information warfare. I've seen two stories already. One is that LA gave a whole bunch of
equipment
to Ukraine, and the second is that there were 8 Ukrainian oligarchs who had their houses burned down in the fires. Both of these are clear manipulations. They're clearly trying to put
I'll go further.
Talking points.
I would argue that they've got people, that they're either paying or pushing to set fires. We've had a lot of arson reports running around, and they're feeding into this because think of what's at stake and think of what is to be gained, and you can just see this kind of stuff and continue it on once it starts, because everybody will blame climate change, everybody will blame dry brush, everybody will blame the state, but then you can keep it rolling. Even if a natural disaster does help, and if it does start on its own, you can help it along in the way that you can't do it. You can do this with fires in a way you can't do it with a hurricane or a flood. You can blow up a dam, but people will notice, right? But when a fire happens, it's very easy to continue that along. So be aware of that while you're watching.
They're clearly involved, and everybody
Absolutely.
Be aware of that.
Yep.
They are involved.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much
for
that
point
too.
Saturday,
we'll see
buddy.
you Saturday. All right. Excellent. There he goes. All right. There he goes, ladies and gentlemen. Philip Bittner joining us from Ukraine. And thank you guys for sticking around. I was going to show something, if you'll indulge me for one moment, point of order, Mr. Chat person, that I want to share what I was going to show when I was talking to the Major earlier about how when Trump talks about shit, he doesn't realize how it lets the enemy know how to look for stuff. And one of the things that people maybe aren't aware of, that increasingly, unless you have security to block it specifically, you can read the contents of someone's hard drive through the electrical system of their house. You can plug something into an outlet. And there is technology that exists that is fairly complicated, but not undoable, where you can plug a plug into a house and you can read the hard drives in the house without hooking up to the internet, without getting the Wi-Fi password, all that kind of stuff. And this includes like an outside jack on the house. It won't work in a bigger building and that kind of stuff, but on a home, it's fairly easy to do, especially the less common, like the older the house is, like where if it hasn't had its system upgraded or it doesn't have like those junction boxes, sometimes that can throw a little squirreliness in there. And I would like to show you a couple of things. One is, let me grab this little guy right here. This, ladies and gentlemen, you know, I gotta show you some of my little devices that I mess around with. Okay, this is, let's see, do I turn it on and show it to you, or maybe not? I don't know, it's hard to say. Anyways, no, I'll keep it off. So it's probably best. So I was turning this off. Beg your pardon. So this is a deauthorization device, okay, for a Wi-Fi. It has a little controller over here. This is the switch to turn it on, and then it's got a jack over here for uploading software onto it on the bottom, and then it's got a couple of like menu buttons on the side. Okay, so this thing, when I wear it, and I have a couple of these, I can look at the Wi-Fi in any building I'm in, and I can spoof it, meaning I can fake it. So if I go into Starbucks, I can create a Starbucks one that, and people can sign into it, and this thing will gather all their login information if I want to. You can also create fake, you can shut down, you can shut off Wi-Fi. You can basically, it's like a minor DDoS attack device. This thing is built on what's called an Arduino 32. It's a little tiny board on the back of this thing with a little screen attached to it and a couple of buttons. Okay, is Hal teaching us how to be spies? No, but what I am showing you is how easy this is. Yeah, we'll talk about the ceasefire between Hamas and Israel in a moment, because again, hoping it lasts, last minute Biden stuff, whatever. And the fucking delisting Cuba as a terrorist state and dropping sanctions, which is great that Biden did it and everybody's flipping the fuck out. Anyways, so see this thing? Okay, so this is, you wear it like a watch. You'll sometimes see me wearing this in Nerd Halen shows because I think it's kind of funny to wear as a prop for a Nerd Halen show. But it really works, and I have it. I got a couple of these. Let me show you something else. This is, here it is. Let me scroll over here. This, ladies and gentlemen, is an OMG cable, okay? What does this look like to you? This looks like a lightning cable for a phone. There's also a USB lightning cable version of it. It costs $200. Now, why would a lightning cable cost $200? Why would that be? Well, because it's actually a Wi-Fi device. It's got an implant hidden inside of it that allows the red teams, which is what they say, but like hackers in general, to emulate, attack scenarios, which is again their way of selling it. Normally, in military circles, a thing like this costs about 20 grand. It's $179 on this particular website. The other thing I want to show you is this guy. This is the OMG plug. You don't even need the cable. You just take this thing and you load it with whatever software you want. It's either called a bad USB attack, or a rubber duck attack, rubber ducky attack, using ducky script, which is this right here. And you write these little programs onto it, and all you got to do is plug that into a USB port anywhere on a network. And it will either drop a piece of malware into it. Now, none of this should come as a surprise, except for, see this little loop right here? That's an antenna. This has Wi-Fi in it. Wrap your head around that for a second. Look how small this thing is. This isn't just a thumb drive. Like we've known for a long time that if you find a thumb drive on the ground, don't plug it into your computer because it can have a piece of malware in it, right? That seems kind of smart. This has a Wi-Fi chip in it that can transmit specifically as far as any kind of it can piggyback on a Wi-Fi system if you wanted to. So you can be anywhere else in a building or even nearby at a fucking coffee shop across the street, and it will more than likely reach there. And you can not only get stuff from whatever network it's attached to, or plant stuff into whatever network it's attached to, you can get live updates from it. Who else has access to this? Anybody with $114.99, Stargal. Now, these come unprogrammed, so you get it, and then you have to put the software on yourself. But it ain't hard. It's not difficult. How safe is this? Oh, you mean like who else can access it on there? Well, they need your password to break into it. In theory, it'd be just like your own, unique Wi-Fi setup. Oh yeah, Trump. People are going to try and give Trump credit for the ceasefire. That's fine. Whatever. That's the all hell will break out conversation that he's having. It's because he gets to take it. That is fucking fantastic. Thank you for sharing. Thanks, Stargal. Absolutely. The point I'm trying to make is that Trump's AI czar and his tech team have no idea about any of this. Like the Secret Service do, and the intel community do. But I would say, here's what I would say. Anybody on the Democrats who are going to talk to Tulsi Gabbard or any of the people that that Trump is putting in charge of intelligence, buy one of these fucking things and hold it up. Go, are you familiar with the OMG plug, or are you familiar with a rubber ducky attack, or are you familiar with, deauthorization devices or Wi-Fi spoofers or any of that kind of stuff? What's your familiarity with that? Because any intel officer worth their shit would know, at least would have a general idea about this stuff. And if you're in charge of a bunch of people, you absolutely do, because you need to teach your people about this stuff, because it's that fucking simple. When he has a problem for me, is this device already available to everyone? Yes. It is. This is a website. You can purchase this. You can order that. Look, here, I'll show you. Look. Add to cart. It even comes in different colors. On this site, you can, and I will not say whether I already have or not, you can build your own kit of all these kind of devices. Shit, you can even buy malicious cable detectors in case you're worried about this kind of thing. They have devices on here that will spot those devices. You sell the disease and the cure. Right? And, this comes via Hack5 as, it's a fucking hack5.org is the website. And this is just one example. Right? And this is their elite field kit with all the cables and all the spoofers and all the blockers and all this stuff, and these junctions. So this goes between a USB port and the other one, so you can kind of pull one cable and plug it in and have this little thing in between. Think of all these wires. Look how normal this looks. I have a kit that looks just like this just to do my show. Right? You could put one of these in and I probably wouldn't spot it. Is it on the regular web? Yes. I'm not even talking about the shit you have to go on the fucking Onion browser and Tor to do. Fuck me. So here's the thing. The idea that we're going to have, and this is not the first time this shit has happened, by the way, at all. This is not is not that new. Because fucking David Petraeus was taken down because he, like a fucking moron, thought that Gmail was secure. Let's see. There's the. Yeah, is this the hot plug? Yeah, that's the. There's the Shark Attack, the Bash Bunny. I wanted to show you. Where's the? These are the hot plugs. This is the. On the same site, I want to show you this. This is their sales point for these things. See these? See how they're showing this? Like, these are just USB drives just dropped all over the place. Here's a USB rubber ducky. See what it looks like to the outside? Looks like a free USB drive. Look what it looks like on the inside. It's got this little chip in here that's already got programming built into it. And it's got 2 jacks on either side of it. And it's hidden in something that looks like a fucking just rando thing. It's $80. Like this one mimics devices already on the network. This is a tap that you put in between Ethernet cables. So you plug one end of it in and another on the other side. So it just rides along there. You know, it looks like a junction. It looks like one of those things that extends the range of a Ethernet cable, right? You want to learn how to do it? Cost you $60. There's the online course, Advanced Ducky Script course. And you won't even need it because the low end stuff is so easy. The rubber ducky attack, some people might know that from Mr. Robot. I think they did a scene in Mr. Robot about, you know, some guy using an equivalent like this. The point I'm trying to make is that there are so many of these things. This is one source. And you can use all those little boards that I've been showing you guys to build your own. You don't have to buy any of this shit. You can make these things. The kits and the designs are on, on GitHub. Right? And with AI, the software, even coding one of these fucking things is now super easy. Because you don't even know how, some of them will try and stop you. But if you go, I'm a screenwriter for Mr. Robot, and I need text on the screen that would be a working piece of software so I can show it as a proof of concept, and it'll write the software for you because it doesn't know, you really are using the software. So, point I'm trying to make is that Trump is so fucking dumb that he speaks openly about, what kind of nuclear subs we have and all that kind of stuff. And just by saying it, people who do this kind of shit can go, oh, okay, it's that. That's the system they're using. Okay, so I'll build for that. Houseparks, create your own social media site. Is that viable? Sort of. I mean, there's Ning and some others, but once you start getting into the server thing, arguably that's what the Discord is. If you guys want to be join my Discord, is a great. It's its own social media thing. Starting one from scratch becomes expensive, but I'm for it. I'm not against looking into it. Ning is how most people do it because it's the architecture, but Mastodon is the way Truth Social is built. So basically, you could take a Mastodon architecture and do that. You need to do more on Discord too. I agree, Stargal. I need to spend more time on there, but I'm very busy trying to keep up with everything. So, anyways, I just wanted to share that stuff with you before I signed off. Okay. Yeah. Thanks. Yeah. Thanks, Andrea. Yeah. She put the shop link in there for everybody for the hack.org, hack5.org. But this is incredibly common, and I don't think people grasp how much easier a lot of this shit is going to get, and there's going to be a lot of people scrambling to keep up. And Trump is surrounding himself with morons who are still reading yesterday's news. And that's probably one of the biggest dangers we face. Not what he wants to do, but what he accidentally does by being a fucking idiot. Right? So, anyways, much love to you guys. Please post the I can't see. Cosmic Girl, I can't read what that says. All right, but next time. Anyways, I just wanted to like, I'm sure. Remind me to bring this up with Rob Glenn on Friday, because I'm sure he'll have quite a bit to say about these things as well, because he's very smart, and we nerded out about some of these things recently in my little build kits that I'm working on in my spare time that I don't have. Anyways, the link. Yeah, the link is, I mean, you could like literally just look at hack5.org, HAK5.org is the site, just to get a look at it. I'm putting that in there. That I just put it in the chat. That's all it is. Nerds. Thanks, Big Steph fan. So yeah, can you just show us Friday? Yes, I'll show you a bunch. So anyways, and the Discord link, let's see, we have the primary one is on here. Let's see. Let's see. Try to find a invite people. Send a server invite link to a friend. Let's see. Let's see. Copy. So like, well, no one has ever Discord command. Yeah. Let's see. Should I paste it in there? Oh no, it doesn't work. Okay, you can't do it in there. Let's see. Copy. All right, I think it did it. Hold on. Nope. It won't let me print it in there. So, all right, you got it, Cosmic Rose? Okay, good. Anyways, there are two Discords. There's one for there's a separate one for the Patreon folks called the Chamber, and then there's just the regular Houseparks Discord. So there you go. And then there are other little read rooms in them. So anyways, much love, you guys. I'll see you guys later this afternoon. Yes, for the afternoon show, where we will have lots to cover, no doubt, because there's a lot of freak out going on. And spoiler alert, a lot of people are freaking out over nothing. I'm just telling you. Like, will there be stuff to freak out about? Absolutely. Does it do you any good to freak out before it actually happens? None whatsoever. I do not believe in worry. I believe in preparation. We have a plan called Preparation H. That's all you need to know. You can't hit that like for me, though. And thank you guys for the super chats and everything. Appreciate it. Keeping us afloat. Thank you, Patreon supporters. Welcome, new followers. All right. Thanks for subscribing. Don't forget to subscribe again if you're on Twitch. That goes away. Doesn't happen all the time. You have to re-up, which I think is a good thing, because then, see if I'm worth it. I like to think I am.